You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Why, hello there, cat. Yes, I'm doing just fine. We're making some baby steps and we're getting there. And there's even a few things that are occurring on the national and international front, which are very exciting. So I am one happy trooper. Ah, yes, Maryanne Atkins. She's my star. She can actually reach teenagers. And I'm really concerned about teenagers these days because they're still going through that process of learning. And we've added some new stuff to their plate. And, when I was growing up, there was a few things we were concerned about. But now there's there's a whole lot more for the kids to blend into their life. Yeah, I know. There's quite a few of them in there with you that were convicted as teenagers, and rather than just let them waste away in prison, it would be a very good idea to tap into their knowledge base, to get them to speak out and help motivate some others. I put things on TikTok, and TikTok has a younger audience, and usually the things that are just for fun, the funny things, the motivational things, the things that are just kind of away from the everyday reality, those are the ones that get the most plays. And I just recently had a big one play, and I'm really, really happy that people are listening to videos that are motivational. And if we can grow that market, I think we'll be able to have a whole lot more success. Yeah, and that's another thing too, to talk to the people in the prison. And you get telephone calls and securus messaging, talk to the people out there as well. I'm hoping some people like out in this audience will reach out to you, and you can share your stories. They can share their stories. Knowledge is a very strong force with teenagers and with their parents and friends. And there's I would sit down with a group of children during Sunday school, or if I was visiting them at parties or something, and they're fascinated by the things that would go on in my life. And I haven't seen a drop in storytelling. I know when you look at stories of Native Americans, a lot of them are passed down verbally. And so when a person sits down and tells an Aesop story or a story about something that occurred in their life, it sparks some interest. And a person who's in prison who gets a chance to speak out, like DeMar Nelson with this podcast, if they're talking about their previous life or their current life, or giving advice on how to stay
You have
away
60 seconds
from
remaining.
crime, it has a little more impact coming from an incarcerated person or a formerly incarcerated person than it does from somebody like me who's never experienced that. And that's a good thing. And a lot of folks, they'll preserve letters. So you write the snail mail, send it to your family, and if it's preserved once you get out, that will bring back some memories for you, and you can share those. I know Cami
You have
Norris
30 seconds remaining.
on TikTok. I had a video of hers promoting her interview, and that was over a year ago. And when it came back up to be replayed, she was able to mix it and to save it and to share it with her audience. And it showed her from a year ago. And in a year ago, I was showing her from a few years ago in prison with her prison pictures. Good, good. Send me some of those. Let's get that information out. It's brief, but
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
salutations. Welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I am your host, Joel Wilborn. And this episode is about one of the people that I really love and really respect and hope to help get out of prison, and that's Maryanne Atkins. And her story is kind of coming back into the headlines. Maybe not specifically her. I'm hoping to get her out there. But people with similar situations. There's debate about self-defense. There's issues, especially for a presidential candidate or a certain party, about rape and sexual assault and abuse. These things drag themselves up years after it's over, and it kind of makes you wonder why the person waits so long. With the interview that I did with Maryanne, she waited because nobody really was interested, and she actually said she didn't go out seeking to broadcast her story because she didn't think anybody cared. And that's one of the reasons why people don't share their stories, and we need to get them out. And I hope we can get them out quick so that the evidence is still there, witnesses are still there, and the case is still fresh on everybody's mind. And with Maryanne, she gave me her story in a couple of interviews, and she gave some advice and trying to help people to steer away. And, she wants to do that as well. She wants to get her life back in order. She's taking classes. She's taking advantage of the resources over there. She paid her retribution to the victim's family. And I really couldn't say anything else that we need to do with her because she's doing such a fantastic job. And it's very motivating to see that kind of stuff because she's a very good spirit. She has a kind heart. She's an intelligent woman, and I think she just got the bum deal. In a nutshell, she was hanging out with her friend because she was in foster care. She was adopted. She really wanted some attention, something that I strongly stress, and she wasn't getting the love that a lot of us take for granted. And with folks in that age group, gangs are big, and so they'll come out and say, we'll care for you when nobody else will, and blah blah blah, and then people get caught up in it. And so she's hanging around with her friends. She finds some people that showed some care for her, and she resonated toward that. But a lot of folks, especially the criminal element, they use this need for attention, for love, for acceptance. They use that to their advantage. And humans by nature want to be a part of a group. We enjoy attention. We enjoy communicating, listening, sharing. And it gives us a sense of belonging, that we're needed, that we have a purpose. There's a lot. That's why families, the male, the female get together, have a child, and there's a family. And they all help each other, especially the child. The child needs the parents, and hopefully they can keep both parents. It doesn't always happen, just like the case with Maryanne. And Maryanne's also a good example of the weapons. The big stress right now is get rid of assault weapons. And okay, fine and dandy. But the underlining story on that is that it's not going to work. You, and in her case, she told me in her interview that she had never fired a weapon, didn't own a weapon. And this guy was demanding sex from her. She didn't want to give it, but he eventually overcame her. And they got into a little struggle. And she took his gun and killed him, and she ran. And she didn't turn herself in because, she was definitely an innocent person. But being a 16-year-old, being scared, confused, this is not what she expected. She didn't know how to handle it. She didn't even know who to turn to. And eventually, she's caught. I mean, they kept telling her about the DNA, and they had good evidence, and they wanted to charge her with first-degree murder, and she was trying to rob this guy. And the DA said, she cold-bloodedly killed this man and took his money, and then posted pictures of the gun and her money online on Facebook. Well, in her interview, she tells her side of the story. And I was asking her if she ever wanted to, and she's like, yeah, because I read the stories that were published from the victim's family and from the DA. And they were saying that she sent text messages that this person was an easy target, that she'd done something that's going to put her in the news, and that she had pictures on Facebook posing with the money that she took from this guy and with the weapon that she used to kill him, and that she just lied, and she was a cold-blooded killer. Well, in her interview, in her side of the story, she got a chance to respond to that because she pled out on this, and it didn't give her a chance to defend against this evidence that was brought to her. The stuff that I read in the articles, newspaper articles, she was able to respond to that. And she said that she had posed on Facebook with that before the murder. And she did that because she's a teenager and she wanted to fit in. It's just classic. She just wanted to look like this tough girl. She wanted to look like the people that she hung out with on the streets. The text messaging was sent by her friend. And pretty much we know somebody. And maybe we could say we know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. But people will share text messaging. I mean, there's people that will send a message through somebody else's message service or text message. And like if you forget a password on your Facebook and you want to send a message to somebody, okay. And then that's possible. You go to court and you can prove that, no, I did not send that message. Yes, that was my account. But that's what she was saying was with the text messaging. She wasn't setting up anything. She didn't do anything. And there was no witnesses that got to come by and say that wasn't her or that was her. Or this is, they didn't even get to pull in Facebook or anything like that. So that was her explanation for the social media. And they were saying that she was claiming that he raped her. The family was saying, how dare you drag our loved one's name through the mud like that? Well, when I was preparing to set up this interview, I reached out to the family. I reached out to the Liberian community. Nobody responded. They seem to have just dropped off. There's really not a lot about this poor victim that she murdered. But there are a few things about her. You do a internet search on her name, you'll see a lot on her, a lot of stuff that I put up there, and a lot of the negative stuff in the press. You run the victim's name, you're not going to see too much on it, especially not a lot of pictures. The folks that Maryanne was in jail with told her that you should take a plea deal because you don't want to be charged with first-degree murder. You could go to prison for a long time. And so that's what she did. She was trusting this system, not knowing that they were going to go out and just go blah, 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 blah on things that she never had a chance to defend herself on. And so, she's caught up in all of this. And when I'm looking into the background on this and what got her involved in all of this stuff, I can see how she got misrepresented in the court. The judge was saying you're a liar. Well, she's 16 years old. She's scared, and she would say things. And a good attorney would have brought that up, but this judge was just hell-bent on punishing her for lying. Even Judge Judy, when you watch the Judge Judy shows, says, a teenager's lying when their lips are moving. And she knows that. So if a teenager were to go before her, it's more like, I'm going to take everything you say with a grain of salt. Of course, they believed her when she pled guilty, but pretty much everything else they didn't. And so you could do a search on Maryanne and you can see what was said. And then you can listen to her interview and you can just compare it yourself. Now she's much older, she's much wiser, and she has nothing to lose by telling the truth. She doesn't have to try to defend herself. And so it's easy for her just to come clean. She was embarrassed, she was ashamed. And any rape victim can relate to that. And those of us who have never been raped, we get our information from the victims. And I see no reason not to believe what she said in the interview. And as far as the guns, this assault weapon stuff, this is a woman who didn't own a gun, didn't fire a gun, had no real interest in guns, unless they were just kind of presented to her. But this guy felt that he needed to carry one. Here is a 21-year-old man with a 16-year-old girl alone in a car with a gun. And when she's trying to get away, it's like, you got what you want. Leave me alone. Take me home. Get me out of here. Everybody has a limit. They have a max on their sanity, we'll say. And there's things that get us angry. And she was just not happy. She did not like the way she was being treated. She didn't like being betrayed. And so during the struggle, she picks up the gun. She shoots him. Now, the community knew his reputation. So when she's in this class and in this courtroom with a black judge and a bunch of folks from the Liberian community, a bunch of black folks in there, demanding that she be locked up, the judge just says, "You lying to me? I'm giving you 19 years. And, the press is saying she showed no remorse. And that's because they're listening to the DA, they're listening to the judge, they're listening to the community, they're not listening to her. Why would she show remorse for killing a man who raped her? And it just goes to show that they didn't give her a fair shot. And I like comparing what was said in the news and what was said by her. And I hope you listen to that interview. You can find it on my YouTube channel, the Joel Wilborn YouTube channel, under The Murder of Emmanuel. And you'll see the excerpts from the newspaper articles in there. Kind of AI kind of reads it, and I don't have any photographs of Emmanuel Gondo, but you don't really need that. I have photographs of the family, photographs of Maryanne standing in court, and her voice explaining what happened. And maybe I prefer that when people come up with their opinion, they hear both sides. And after hearing what the prosecutor said and after hearing what Maryanne said, then your opinion is going to matter, because you've heard both sides, you're not being biased, and you'll know what you believe. And that's a good way to form an opinion. And I know the 16-year-old. 16-year-olds know 16-year-olds, and anybody who's older than 16-year-old knows the 16-year-old. And a weapon is a weapon. It doesn't have to be an assault weapon. It doesn't have to be a pistol, a rifle. Like one of my events from the past is I was teaching my 16-year-old daughter to drive. And she's in a vehicle driving for the first time. Big, powerful vehicle. So I went down the back roads, and I'm saying, this is turn signal and brake and clutch and gear shift and wheel and hood, just the basic stuff of driving a car. And so as we're driving down this straightaway, we're on a back street, this boy was crossing the street, and she seemed to sped up. And I said, no, be careful, you don't want to hit him. And she just says, why? It doesn't matter. And, I'm not sure if she was joking or not, but if she could really have hit this guy, done some damage. But she was under my supervision. I would be responsible if anything had happened, since she didn't have her license. And I was able to take control of the situation, get her to slow down, and no, don't be striking people, even if you don't like them and you don't think they matter. But that's a 16-year-old. They take risks because they're not aware of the consequences. And even if they are, they don't see them as a big issue, and they're willing to take that chance. If I get caught, I get punished. If I don't, I'm having fun. And with 16-year-old Maryanne, she's the same way. She goes around and she knows hanging out with a certain group of people is bad. She said in her interview she was doing drugs, and they were both high. And we do things as human beings under the influence that we wouldn't do as human beings without these drugs. And then sometimes drugs can help calm us down and keep us from doing violent things. But drugs, weapons, crime, a lot of that stuff goes hand in hand. And that's one thing that Maryanne talks about. In her 2 interviews, she doesn't go into the detail about why she's against drugs and hanging out with a bad crowd. But in the murder of Emmanuel Gondo, yes, she goes into that. And she should. And that's something I'd like for kids to see, especially teenagers. But she's very detailed in there, and so it's got a graphic content warning, and I don't want anybody to watch the video if they feel that it's going to be a distraction. We want to learn from this, and so I'm hoping you'll tune in, listen to the video, and maybe share the information with others, open up a discussion, and come up with an opinion that you can stand by through the harshest of criticism. And if we can save one person, get one person to not walk out into the street with people they barely know, if we can get them to watch out for each other, if we can get them to stay in pairs, we're going to do it. We're going to make this. And limiting human rights, banning stuff, I really don't see the logic in that. But if that's their passion, that's what they'll do. They'll fight it. My passion is to educate folks, to give them both sides of the story so they can make their decision and stick with it. There'll be no doubt. It'll be a strong opinion, a strong belief, a strong stance, and they can stay strong. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember to hug your loved ones, express your opinions and your concerns with your group of friends so that we can get to know each other and realize that when there's a change that we need to look into that, especially something that's drastic behavior that's not your style. So go out and have yourself a beautiful day and make wonderful memories for tomorrow.